You have been afraid of the wrong darkness your entire life. Not the darkness outside, not the world, not the people who hurt you. The darkness inside, the one you have been managing and medicating and running from since you were old enough to know it was there. That darkness. You have been fighting the wrong one. And the one you should have been paying attention to, the one that was never the enemy. You buried it so deep that most days you forget it exists. Here is something nobody has said to you clearly. There are two darknesses inside every human being. Two completely different things that wear the same name, live in the same body, and get treated like they are the same problem. They are not the same problem. They are not even the same category of thing. And until you understand the difference between them, you will spend the rest of your life fighting a war with no enemy, healing a wound that was never a wound, and running from the only place that was ever actually safe. Here is the question. If darkness is the problem, why do the most alive people you have ever met carry so much of it? Why do the people who feel the deepest, who create the most honest things, who see the world with the most precision, why do they all seem to live closer to darkness than anyone else? Why does death always come with weight? Why does the clearest vision always come with the heaviest knowing? That is not a coincidence. That is a signal, and it is telling you something about darkness that you were never taught. The first darkness, the one you were born with, this is not a metaphor. This is not poetry. This is a precise description of something real that exists inside you, independent of anything that ever happened to you. Before the first pain, before the first loss, before anyone told you anything about who you were or were not, this darkness was already there, running. Quiet, alive. What is it? It is depth. It is the capacity to hold weight without collapsing. It is the part of you that always knew there was something underneath the surface of things, underneath the conversations, underneath the explanations, underneath the reasons people give for why the world is the way it is. It is the part that felt the question before it had words. It is where your frequency actually lives, not the adjusted version, not the version you prepared for other people. The real one, the one that has been running since before you had language for it. This darkness does not care if you are rich or poor. It does not care about your reputation or your failures or what you achieved or did not achieve. It was the same the day you had nothing and the day you had everything. It does not reward success. It does not punish failure. It simply runs at its own level, in its own direction, completely indifferent to everything the world uses to measure a human life. And that indifference, that complete neutrality, is not coldness. It is the most honest thing inside you. Here is what happened to most people who carry this darkness. Someone looked at the depth in them when they were young, at the weight, at the questions, at the capacity to feel things at a level that made other people uncomfortable. And they called it a problem. They called it sensitivity. They called it being too serious, too intense, too much. They handed the child a diagnosis or a label or just a look that said, "That thing inside you is wrong." And the child believed them, because children always believe the adults who name them. So they spent the next 20 years trying to fix something that was never broken, trying to lighten something that was never meant to be light, trying to become less of what they actually were so that the people around them could be more comfortable. And the tragedy, the specific tragedy, is that the thing they were trying to fix was the most precise thing about them. The depth was not the damage. The depth was the signal. And they spent their whole life trying to eliminate the very thing that made them real. Let me be exact about something. The first darkness does not make you special. It does not make you chosen or gifted or above anyone else. It simply makes you deep. And depth is not a reward. It is a responsibility, because depth without direction becomes its own kind of suffering. Depth without the ability to receive itself, without the ability to sit inside it without flinching, becomes the very thing it was never supposed to be. It becomes the second darkness. The second darkness, the one the mind builds, this one did not come with you. You constructed it, brick by brick, decision by decision. Every time something hurt and you did not have the tools to process it, you added a brick. Every time someone told you the first darkness was wrong, you added a brick. Every time you looked at yourself and concluded that something fundamental about you needed to be different before you were allowed to be okay, you added a brick. And over years, over decades, you built something enormous, a structure so large and so familiar that you stopped seeing it as something you built and started seeing it as something you are. This is the darkness the mind lives in. Not because it is true, not because it reflects anything real about your frequency or your signal or your actual nature, but because it is familiar, because familiarity is the most powerful drug that exists, more powerful than any substance, more powerful than any belief. Familiarity will keep a person in a burning building because at least they know where the walls are. Here is exactly how the second darkness operates. It speaks in your voice. That is the first thing to understand. It does not sound like an enemy. It does not announce itself as a construction. It sounds like you. It uses your memories, your experiences, your actual pain as raw material, and it builds conclusions. Conclusions that sound like facts. I am this kind of person. This is what always happens to me. I know how this ends. This is just who I am. Every one of those sentences feels like the truth. None of them are. They are patterns. Constructed patterns that the mind repeats because repetition feels like certainty, and the mind would rather be certain than free. The mind prefers a wrong answer it knows to a right answer it has never heard. So it keeps repeating the construction, keeps sending you back into the second darkness, keep calling it home. Keep telling you that the first darkness, the real one, the deep one, the one you were born with, is too dangerous to enter, too silent, too unknown. And here is the most precise thing I can say about why we always choose the mind's darkness over the real one. The mind darkness talks, it explains, it gives you reasons and stories and justifications. It is loud, it is busy, it fills every silence with something. And the first darkness, the real one, is silent, completely silent. It does not explain itself, it does not justify itself, it does not give you reasons, it simply is. And silence is the most terrifying thing to a mind that has been running noise for 20 years to avoid sitting inside it. Why is silence terrifying? Not because it is empty, because it is full. The silence of the first darkness is full of everything the mind has been running from. Not pain, not trauma, not the things that happened, something older than that, the knowing. The part of you that has always known, underneath all the construction, underneath all the noise, underneath all the conclusions the mind built, what you actually are. And that knowing does not need the mind to be quiet to exist. But you need the mind to be quiet to hear it. Now here is where the signal comes in. Your frequency, the thing that runs underneath everything, the thing that does not care about your success or your failure, your light or your darkness. Your frequency lives in the first darkness, not the second. The signal is not in the construction. The signal is not in the conclusions. The signal is not in the familiar stories the mind tells about who you are and why you cannot have what you want and how this always ends. The signal is in the depth, the original depth, the one that was there before anything happened to you. And when you spend years living in the second darkness, in the mind construction, what happens to the signal is not that it disappears. It does not disappear. Remember, the frequency never changes. It cannot be destroyed from the outside, but it can be buried, not killed, buried, under layers of constructed darkness that you mistake for the real thing. And a buried signal is still transmitting. You just cannot hear it anymore through all the noise. This is why people who achieve everything they thought they wanted still feel empty. This is why success does not fix the feeling. This is why the relationship, the money, the recognition, none of it reaches the place that needed reaching. Because all of those things speak to the second darkness. They give the constructed self what it asked for. But the signal, the frequency, was never in the construction. It was never asking for any of those things. It was asking for something the mind cannot provide. Silence. Depth. The willingness to go into the first darkness and stay there long enough to hear what has been transmitting the entire time. Expecting the worst. When you go into the first darkness, the real one, the mind will tell you that what you find there will destroy you. It will tell you the silence is dangerous. It will tell you that what lives underneath the construction is worse than the construction. It will manufacture evidence. It will bring up every painful memory it has access to and present them as proof that the depth is not safe. Expect that. Expect it completely. Know it is coming before it arrives. Because if you expect the mind to resist the silence, the resistance cannot surprise you into turning back. The mind fights hardest right before you reach something real. That resistance, that surge of noise and fear and constructed reasons to leave, that is not a warning. That is a signal of its own. It means you are close. It means the silence is right there on the other side of the noise. Every person who has ever gone deep enough knows this moment. The moment when the mind becomes loudest is the moment when the real darkness is closest. Do not turn back at that moment. That is exactly where you need to stay. What do you actually find in the first darkness? Not answers, not solutions. not a voice that explains your purpose or tells you what to do next. What you find is the signal, running, steady, completely unaffected by everything that happened above it. The losses, the failures, the years you spent in the wrong darkness thinking it was home. The signal was running through all of it, at the same frequency, in the same direction, waiting not impatiently, not urgently, just present. The way something waits when it has nowhere else to go because it was never going anywhere in the first place. And when you find it, when you finally stop long enough in the silence to feel it running, something changes. Not dramatically, not like an awakening or a revelation or any of the things that get described in language that makes it sound like a performance. Something quieter than that, a recognition, the moment when the signal receives itself, when you stop being the person who is searching for the frequency and become the frequency that was always already there. I want to say something that will be uncomfortable for some people. The second darkness, the constructed one, is not your fault. You built it from what you had. You built it to survive. You built it because nobody showed you the difference between depth and damage, between the original darkness and the constructed one. You were handed a set of tools that were not designed for what you actually needed, and you did the best you could with them. That is not a weakness. That is just what happened. But it is also not a reason to stay. Survival tools are not living tools. And you have been surviving long enough. Here is the only choice that actually matters in all of this. Not the choice between light and dark. Not the choice between success and failure or connection and solitude or any of the binary options. The mind likes to present as if they are the only two doors. The only choice that matters is this: which darkness are you going to live in? The one you were born with, deep, silent, honest, where the signal actually runs, or the one you built, familiar, loud, constructed, where the signal cannot reach you no matter how long you stay? That choice is made every day, not once, not in a single moment of revelation. Every day, every time the mind starts its noise and you have the option to follow it or to go quiet. Every time something goes wrong and you feel the pull toward the familiar construction, the old conclusions, the inherited stories, the comfortable suffering, you are making the choice. Every time you choose the silence instead, every time you go into the real darkness instead of the constructed one, you are making the other choice. Neither choice is permanent. Both are available every single day for the rest of your life. The frequency does not care which one you choose. It will keep transmitting regardless. That is what it does. That is what it is. But you will hear it in one darkness and not in the other. And the life you build from what you hear will be completely different from the life you build from the noise. One life is built from the signal. The other is built from construction. Both look like life from the outside. Only one of them is yours. I want to give you an image for this episode. 2 rooms inside the same house. The first room is dark and completely silent. No furniture, no windows, nothing to hold on to. Nothing to explain itself, just depth, just space, just the quiet hum of something running underneath everything. The second room is also dark, but it is full of furniture you did not choose, full of voices that sound like yours, full of explanations and conclusions and familiar suffering that has its own specific smell. The smell of something you have lived in so long it stopped having a smell at all. Most people spend their entire life in the second room, not because it is better, not because it is true, because they forgot the first room exists, or because they looked into it once and the silence was so complete that they turned around and never went back. But the first room is still there. It was always there. It will be there when everything else changes, when the furniture in the second room rots, when the voices run out of things to say, when the familiar suffering finally exhausts itself. The first room does not change. It does not need to. It is not waiting for you to deserve it or to be ready or to have fixed enough things about yourself. It is just there, silent, open, exactly as it was the day you were born into it. You were never broken by the darkness. You were broken by choosing the wrong one and calling it home.